right, we are rolling. So this is episode 6
There you go.
of Working Class Heroes.
It is.
It is. And we are back to a location we shot at before.
Yep. Outdoors, a little bit of clouds, but it's a beautiful fall day.
Sure is. Well, I wouldn't say it's beautiful.
To me, it's beautiful. I like the
not-
overcast. It's the
it's
Irish
not-
shimmy.
It's not raining. Yeah, it's a sunny day for the Irish, right?
Yes, right.
So we want to welcome everybody back to Bass Musician Magazine and Working Class Heroes. I'm Steve.
And I'm Sean.
And here we are again, and we're going to talk about those things that happen for us musicians as we're out there working and trying to make things happen, right?
That's right.
So I think the first thing that we were going to talk about was going to be the guy who comes up to you at the gig? I think that's-
Yeah, that'd probably be a good one to start off with.
So imagine this. You're at the gig. Now this is the reality. Now if you're playing a big show and you're on a stage somewhere, like a big stage, nobody's going to be able to walk up to you.
Right.
But the reality is that most of us aren't playing those stages most of the time.
Right.
You're at the bar gig, you're at the club gig, you're approachable because you're on that almost that same level. Your
Yeah,
stage
you're
is
in the
like-
corner of the bar room or something like that,
Yeah.
yeah, or behind the pool table or something like that.
Yeah,
They
it
can
might
come
be
right up to you.
It could be anywhere from a 6-inch stage to the floor to maybe a 2-foot stage. You're up a little bit, but not up enough to make sure that the drunk guy who has a song request can't bug you in the middle of the song that you're currently playing.
Nothing is more annoying than when it's like that 2-foot stage that you're talking about,
Yeah.
and they're looking up at you like, hey, you, I want to tell you something. It's really important. I can't wait in between songs. It has to happen now.
Why is it always us? Why is it always the bass player they come up to?
They think we're not doing as much.
You're not really in the band.
Yeah, it's like, oh, he's just the mask guy. He plays 4 strings. Those guys got 6.
Yeah. They look like they're actually doing something. You're kind of back there. You can talk to me. And it's always like this elongated conversation about this song they want to hear that you guys don't play at all.
Yeah.
It's like, do you know this artist? And we're like, no. It's like, can you play this song? It's like, what part of this gig makes it sound like we're going to cover your songs? This isn't...
Yeah.
It's-
I've had the ones try to sing me the lyrics into my ear
While
as though
you're
that
playing.
was going to magically like tell me what the song was.
While you're playing the gig.
Yeah, while I'm doing the gig. Like, no, I'm thinking of a totally different song right now, guy. And the worst part about that is it tends to throw me off if like they are really trying to like make sure they're kind of captivating my attention. That's a big problem for sure.
Absolutely. There's always that guy who's like, he's inebriated to almost the point where he is about to like fall over, and he's like leaning into you. He might be grabbing on. And he's trying to just get this conversation to you as smoothly as possible. There's just no way that's going to happen, and they're always on the verge of falling over. And
There's that, but there's also like the drunk girls that come up to the stage and stuff like that. It's not always just the drunk guys, the
bar
drunk
owner-
girls too.
The bar owners too, that kind of make their way over.
Oh,
So you're playing
yeah.
the gig, the bar owner comes over and they decide that they are going to change the set list on you mid-song.
Yeah, I've had bar owners come up and try to kind of like direct the band when it came to volumes.
Oh, yeah.
Like they'll typically try to like you up or you down, or they'll try and like point to each person and tell them what's going on.
I like the reach back, like you are changing something, but you're not really doing
Yeah,
anything.
I've done that. I've done the ghost turning too. It's
Yeah.
like, here's the knob. I just kind of go right around it. We're all good now, buddy.
It's like the Leland Sklar producer
Yeah,
switch.
yeah. It's like, perfect. That's the right amount of volume. I know. I said it the first time.
That's so it always works out really well, right? Yeah, there's always somebody, and it's like you're bound to hit at least one person every gig. And
Yep.
those are the guys that come up and they ask you for a million songs, and then if you do say, okay, well, you know what, we're gonna have one of those for you, and if you have the tip jar out, because remember, working class, a lot of times we always have the tip jar out because
Gotta.
we're not making the big bucks.
You
They
gotta
never tip-
try.
They never tip you either.
That, and what's the hard part is, like, for me, I don't have any shame in reminding people that fact that we are working class zeros, and that, like, if you want to make a suggestion or you want to request a song, hey, if we know it, yeah, we'll play it for you. Just drop a few bucks in the bucket. So, like, a lot of times, I'll be going to the microphones like, oh, yeah, we could probably play something like that for you. Just like drop like a 5 or a 10 in the bucket.
Yep.
And, I've worked with people in the past that have gotten upset with me in the same band, that have gotten upset with me for saying that because they don't like to try and put the pressure on people to tip. But I'm sorry, but like venues don't pay what they used to pay.
Well, they pay exactly what.
Yeah, they used to pay. They pay exactly what they used to pay. But it's not. It hasn't gone up in inflation in like 50 years.
They haven't caught up. Yeah, I was gonna say. I think I make now, like most of the bars around here pay exactly what they paid in the '90s, which is really terrible. So it's like, like my gig in 1999 pays the same as it does in 2003, which is terrible. But I mean, that's the bar owner, and a lot of times the bar owner expects you to be, the promoter. They expect you to bring all the people in. It's like, hey, I always stipulate to them, we're here to keep your people longer. We're not always going to drag in every single person for you, but you kind of have to work within the realm of what is available.
Well, that's the whole point. The whole point is to be entertainment for the patrons that are there within that establishment. Like, yeah, if you bring a crowd, cool, that's great. But like some venues aren't even set up for that. Some venues, like a restaurant or a bar, like they're not able to accommodate like 50 some odd extra people into the bar that come just to see the band. Well, they might make special accommodations for it.
We had we had a regular gig, and it was like this little like hole in the wall. It's a great place. I like the owner, and so we were playing there once a month. It was nice because like it was that guaranteed gig, and it was like for us it was just like a rehearsal. It was like, we're making okay money. It was like $100 a man for a 5-piece, which isn't great. But it wasn't a harsh one either. It was like a 7 to 10 gig, so it was like perfect, in and out once a month. It was guaranteed that you could at least go and run like new tunes, and it only sat about maybe 40 people at the most. And so we were off a couple months in the summer, and I got a call from the GM, the general manager, goes, "Hey, you know what? We're going to cancel music for the rest of the year." And I'm like, "Why?" He said, "Well, we're not seeing, a lot more people fill up the seats when the band's when the band's playing or when the band's not here." I said, "Well, you don't promote. We bring our people, and it's not going to be."
Yeah, and it's not even the point.
It's like even if we brought in 50 people, you wouldn't be able to accommodate them.
And it's not even the point. The point is that you're providing like entertainment for the patrons that are there. That like, as the bar owner. But like, let's get back to the guy approaching you on stage.
Let's go back there.
So a lot of times when you're playing in like the same floor, corner of a bar, maybe you're playing with a duo or a trio or something like that, you will get approached by somebody, and then they just have to talk your ear off to try and get this point across or to request a song. Oh, it's somebody's birthday. They need you to go make an announcement, and like it really throws off your game. The best thing you can kind of do is when you see it coming, because you can see it in advance come. You can see the person approaching. Just kind of like it's not even that rude. Just like turn and look at them, acknowledge them, and just be like, wait, and keep playing. Just like and nod to them, like okay. And then, and then when it's the middle, before they can approach you and get into your ear, when they're this close to your ear, that's when the problems start occurring, because now you're listening to this and you're not listening to the band, the whole thing, and you'll start missing notes or things will fall apart.
Miss a cue or something that's going on.
Just shut it down.
Yeah, you can't have conversations on stage while you're playing, and there's always somebody who doesn't understand the protocol of that. They don't understand what's good etiquette for that. Now, there is the other side of that too. We just have a truck going by real quick. But the other side of that is the guy who waits for you to like kind of like in between songs and comes up and starts asking you if he could play a song.
Oh,
that's got to be shut down immediately too.
It's not your night. That's the important thing you got to get across to them, because
open mic.
Yeah, I have explained, like, this is not your night to do that. Like I said, I've told people before, I think they have open mic here on Thursdays or something like that.
That's a great answer actually, because we always get that where it's like, oh, my buddy plays bass and he wants to sit in on a song. Is it okay if can he try it out? And I'm always like, no. There's a million reasons why I don't want to hand some stranger my bass.
Sure.
But also, the answer is, hey, you know what, I understand you want to play, that's awesome, but you know what, there is an open mic here, and knowing what that open mic is, or just being able to defer to some other position where they're going to have the opportunity to play, then it doesn't change your standing with that person. It's like, oh, well, they were trying to help me out. It wasn't like, oh, that guy's a jerk and just trying to, he doesn't want me to play.
Right.
No, I don't want you to play, but at the same time, I just don't want you to play on my gig with my instrument, but here's the place that you can go, and giving people options I don't think is ever a bad option.
Sure, yeah, that's a good way of approaching it. I've had it before where, and if you're in a band, don't do this either, where one of your buddies who you know is a competent, musician, is in the audience and wants to come up and play a song with you and the rest of the band, and you're like, oh, well, it's okay. Here, let me just kick one of my existing members off the stage to bring this other guy up to do a song from a different group or whatever that the rest of the people are in or something like that. Don't do that.
Hey, is it cool if my friend sits in for a song? No.
It's idiotic. It looks so unprofessional, and it's just rude to ask that of the person it's actually their night. It's not only your night, it's their night too.
On the gig. It's one thing if it's ahead of time and you're like, you guys are in a rehearsal and it's like, hey, is it cool if, Donnie sits in on drums because, he's in town and he wants to play this, and the drummer's like, hey, no problem, I know Donnie too. But when it's somebody that nobody else in the band or nobody in the band knows him, or it's maybe a couple of guys in the band know him, and you're really putting somebody in that situation. Again, that's a jam etiquette thing. Put them in the jam, don't put them on the bandstand with you. You just don't do that.
Right.
For the sake of time, let's close out this subject and let's move that other one, because it does kind of tie together.
Yep.
So we're talking about the guy who approaches, who so desperately wants to interrupt your session.
Uh-huh.
But that's if you have the gig.
You got to have the gig first for that to happen.
What if you don't have any gigs, but you have a band?
Ooh, so now we're talking about startup. And a startup band where you guys have all these great ideas, all these songs you want to do, whether it's a cover band, we're just going to make a huge list of covers that we all want to play together, or maybe you're trying to do original stuff and you're getting together and you're doing lots of rehearsals and you're fine tuning the songs, you're getting your craft all together.
Yep.
But to what end? Have you made any plans to do any gigs? Have you booked anything?
Yeah.
If not, what are you really doing this for? I mean, it's great if you want to have a guys' night out and everyone's going to get together and have a few beers and play some songs.
Jam.
But is that really is that a professional band? No, it's that's a jam session. You guys are just having fun.
And it doesn't need to be a professional band. Even if you have a band, and this is my feeling. So whenever I get a call from somebody who's got a startup, when I have no problems with startups, I'll play in a startup if it's going to go somewhere. What's the overall goal? Oh, I want to record. Awesome. Okay, so let's do the work ahead of time. We shouldn't be showing up to band practice to learn songs.
Sure.
Whether they're written songs, whether they're, you bounce. The internet is so great for sharing information that if you're writing a track and you want to send it to me, I can hear it and start to work on it before we get together, so that we can have a productive rehearsal and not have 20 non-productive rehearsals. So we're able to kind of tighten that up before we even get to that point. Because otherwise, if you're just spinning your wheels over and over again and you're never getting to the point where you've actually finished the product to begin with, then it becomes problematic.
Sure, when you're talking about just having rehearsals that go nowhere and just writing sessions and just kind of endless writing sessions.
Yep.
To me, it's it's not really a full idea yet for a band. That's the biggest problem that I've seen, at least. To where it's you are investing so much time, and that's my biggest takeaway is if I'm putting so much time into a project, I want to make sure that there's goals of all right, we've contacted X, Y, and Z theaters or venues. We're going to start gigging, and we're going to be gigging hard from this month to this month.
Yeah.
And there's a set schedule of all right, we have this many months to prepare the show, and then moving forward. If you don't really have that, like Steve was saying, the wheels start spinning, people lose motivation.
Yep.
They start to have their interest dwindle in the project. So if it's your band and you want to keep people motivated, you need to set goals and set standards as to what's expected and where you plan on going with the group. If not, then if it's not your group, then you need to figure out what kind of time you're going to put into this.
Absolutely. And I think some of those situations, now I knew you play in Lisa Bodner's group, and I know they were paying you, right, for rehearsals.
Yes.
So that's a good thing too. Is so the paid rehearsal, if it's, and then somebody owns that band, right? It's not just a collaborative, where a lot of these groups, these startups they're quote unquote collaboratives until somebody goes, hey, it's my band, and then they're going to dictate everything that happens. But then they're just expecting you to donate your time. They're expecting you to donate your artistry, essentially.
Yeah, and they're only going to pay you when they actually get the gig.
And then depending on, is it an equal share, or are they gonna take more because all of a sudden it's their band, even though you're putting in, it's your instrument, it's your time, it's your amp, it's your.
I say in a full original band like Lisa Bodner's, The fact that like her and Dan like own the songs, they own the band, and you know, even though I am like their go-to bass player, I am like their first call for everything that we do. I am essentially like a hired gun. You know, like I go and I'm paid to be at rehearsal. I'm paid to learn the songs. I'm paid to do the recordings. You know, I'm paid to do the gigs. You know, and like my time is compensated for like travel and things like that. So all of it's accounted for.
And it's grassroots scale. I mean, you're not like out with Paul Simon and
Nope.
they have you on retainer.
Nope, it's not like that.
It's small money, but small money still keeps you. It covers your gas, it covers your time to get to rehearsal, which is always nice. Now, if it is a group that, hey, we're getting together, we're going to play and write some songs, or we're going to get together and play some covers, maybe some arrangements of covers, I think you have about, for me, I have about 5 rehearsals before I'm done.
I think that's fair.
If something's not happening, I will go to 5 at the max.
I think that's fair for like a schedule like, without like having a gig lined up from the very beginning. For example, when I started doing the Radiohead tribute band, we started working on the tunes and preparing far in advance, like 6 months in advance. We started working on that, putting that show together because we had a date. We had a scheduled date for a large performance, and we needed to have like it was like 2.5 hours of Radiohead material ready to go. So like, you know, that type of preparation and time that was spent in that, it was, you know, far beyond the 5 practice sessions that you're talking about, the rehearsals. We're talking about like, you know, if it was like 1 a week, you know, for 6 months, you know, we're talking 24 rehearsals at that point. And like, was it every week? Maybe not, but still, let's say at least 20 rehearsals before we had a real gig. So how much time you want to put into that, that's your call.
Yeah, I mean, if you're working, and I think that's the difference too. So when you're talking about if you're talking about doing a tribute and you have a planned out show, I think that's the problem too, is like a lot of times when you get together with the startup band, it's like, it's an idea. I have a concept. Okay, what's your concept? Well, we're gonna play songs and make money. Okay, well that only goes so far. You need to have, if somebody's coming to you like that, for me, they need to have some forward motion. Okay, the plan is we're gonna get about 6 songs together, we're gonna record them, we're gonna have either video, we're gonna put together an electronic press kit so that we can book gigs, I'm gonna have these theater gigs. I mean, if you're just gonna play a hole-in-the-wall bar, I mean, it's an end, but it's not really anything really progressive. It's not gonna hold your attention. So if you want to keep the attention and moving forward, now this is talking about like somebody trying to get us hire you as a musician. On the other hand, if it's your band and you're trying to gather those musicians together, and sometimes it's hard to keep a band together, especially as a bass player. You know, it's like you tend to take the brunt of the nonsense, and it's like, so now it's like, okay, well, I'm trying to keep all these guys going. You know, there needs to be a concept. You have the singer fighting you because he doesn't like the key, or you're doing some of these other things. And it's like, so it really, you know, at what point do you give up on that? You know, it's like, okay, so the band that doesn't go anywhere, the band that you have to be able to know when to say enough. And I think that's always, we always hear the say yes to everything, but then there comes a time to say no to things that don't evolve.
Yeah, we've talked about that in an earlier episode for sure, when to say no.
Yep.
And I was approached by a startup band maybe, I don't know, I want to say like 3-4 months ago. And, you know, the initial concept had me a little interested. Yeah. You know, and it was about like essentially doing like tribute, you know, arrangements of like, you know, tunes and stuff like that. I was like, okay, well, to me, I was like, what's the gimmick? What's the niche? Like what makes it interesting? Yep. You can't just say tribute. You know, like, tribute to what? Are we going with tribute to a genre? Tribute to like a decade? Tribute to an artist? What are we doing? And like it was
not the greatest song, but it's a tribute to it.
Not even Tenacious D, but like it was one of those things where like we got together one time just to kind of feel it out, to see how it was all going to go. Personalities meshed all right, but I clearly got the impression of a lack of experience by the two people organizing this, that they did not know how to approach it, and they didn't have goals set in mind. Just what Steve and I are talking about right now with all this startup stuff. None of that was set up in parameters before all of us getting together for that first little rehearsal get together where we ran through like 5 to 7 some odd songs. And to me, I felt that I was like, okay, I see that this is very, very much a startup, and like I would need to be very hands-on in the development of this to get them moving on the right path that I would feel comfortable putting my time into it.
Yeah.
So I just graciously bowed out.
And that's understandable. I always find myself too, it's like, and maybe I'm just a bass snob or musical snob, but if I get a call from a bunch of guys and they are not, if they don't understand music enough to work, like you get a lot of guys that are like, oh, I know some tabs or I know a couple things, and that's okay. It's okay if you're at that point.
Yeah.
But maybe you're not ready. Maybe you need lessons and not a band, and that could be at any age. I mean, if I have to explain to you like a chord progression or what's in a chord,
Yeah.
that becomes problematic. And it's like, so you always have the plunkers that can't explain what they're doing.
That's tough.
And like I find myself in those situations, especially. And it has nothing to do with age, because I play with older musicians that were the same way and younger musicians that were really good. But sometimes it's like if you don't put the time in to actually understand your instrument and you just want to bash it out, I have no time for that. I just don't have an interest in doing that. Now,
Yeah.
unless you come to me and you have a fully put together album or you have a bunch of songs that you're just handing them over to me saying, hey, write the bass part, and then we'll go from there. That's a different story.
Yeah, but even when that's happening, it's like it takes them a very long time to get to that point. So they need to have everything arranged, ready to go. You're providing the bass part, like you're saying, but like they still don't have like the knowledge to be able to like collaborate on something. It's like, oh, you have this idea for something. You're essentially just a hired gun at that point, and like just accept the fact that like if that's the type of arrangement you want to be in, it's going to be a hired gun scenario.
Yep. And I think that, I normally call those scenarios singer-songwriters.
Yeah, that's a good chunk of them for sure.
Yeah, and that's okay. I mean, if that's your thing, and if you can work with them, that's great. Sorry, the lawnmower has shown up once again. I think it showed up last time we did this.
Probably, it's like this guy's regular routine.
I think he's a hired gun.
Yeah, probably
in the lawnmower world. But anyway, so I think it does become problematic if you're working with people and they are not on the same level. And I mean, it's okay not to be on the same level, but I think if it's a startup and like they have nothing together and you're teaching them the basics of songs, I think that can be problematic.
Sure. Yeah, I agree with that.
So why don't we end it? Yeah, let's go into. So we have a couple items I want to talk about. Sure, it's awesome, but is it necessary?
Yeah.
So one is definitely. I only brought really one item. Now I did want to talk about this real quick. I did pick up a set of these. These are the Labella. Now, I'm a flat wound guy. You use rounds, right?
Rounds. Yep.
These are from Labella, and actually Ian Allison told me about these a while ago. And they finally were available, and I tried these out. These are actually the super polished Labellas, and these are actually really awesome. Now I have them on I end up picking up a Music Man Stingray, and I didn't want to put the flats directly on it, even though I was fighting myself to do it.
Sure.
But I wanted something between. I remember talking to him about these, and these are a round wound string, but they're polished to the point that they're flat, so they feel like flats, even though they are not a flat wind. So it's pretty interesting. So I just wanted to mention these guys because they are a really interesting string. Now, what I did bring is, I wanted to bring this up, and I'm going to hand it to Sean, because I don't know if you know what this is.
Well, it's a Sonic Stomp, and actually, you know what? I used to have a Sonic Maximizer by BBE, like back in the day, buddy. So, like, this is essentially, this took that huge rack unit that I had, like,
are you kidding me? There's two of them.
They're multiplying.
There's two floors now.
I used to have a rack unit BBE Sonic Maximizer that I didn't have a rack unit but I didn't have the rack unit. I just sat it on top of the head and just ran it through the effects loop.
Yeah.
But I thought these things were pretty interesting and pretty. It improved the sound when I was playing like metal guitar, like electric guitar and stuff like that. It kind of like
through bad amps, it definitely helps with the EQ. So this is the BBE Sonic Stomp. I have two of these now. The Bass Whisperer, if you know him, he actually was playing one. I remember seeing him use it with an upright, and I was like, hey, that sounds like a really cool item. And at the time I got one, and it does work. Do I keep this on my pedal chain all the time? Obviously not. There are times that, like you said, in metal guitar, it also works. It really helps for the mid range of the bass. So
Okay.
it does really help to project the mid-range. And it's
Well,
basically a processor.
the knobs,
and
like
low
what are
control.
the knobs doing for that
Processor
one?
and low control. So you have two knobs, a processor and low control. And this, of course, is the micro pedal. So there's obviously no battery. So you have to plug it in. But it really is an interesting way to kind of sculpt your signal. So if you've run out of ideas with your EQ, now I like 3 bands on my EQ. I keep the mid almost all the way down these days, and I have the high up to about 1 o'clock and the bass up higher. And that's kind of where I ride these days with my flats and everything. But when I do go into a situation where I need to scoop it a little bit, if I need a little bit more to the presence of the sound, I am going to bring this out. Now, it's awesome. I don't think it's necessary.
I think it really depends on the sound you're going for. If, like I was saying before, back when I used to play metal guitar for bands and whatnot, like part of the sound was using one of these guys with my amp. So, in that scenario, it would be necessary. It would be necessary for me to have the sound that I wanted.
It's nice that they're able to put that into a stomp box.
Oh yeah, this is nice.
It is. It really does change it, because now it's like you have that control that you had to have at one point in time on a rack unit into something that will fit in your pocket.
Yeah, so I think for that case, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Is it necessary? If it's part of your sound, I would say yes.
Okay.
Like if it's something that like you just want to experiment with, I would say no, it's not necessary.
It is nice to have, though. I mean, for the price point, it wasn't bad. I think they're like $130.
Yeah.
It is a nice option if you're playing, you're like something just isn't right. Putting this on, you will hear it. It will enhance the overall signal, and you will get that. So I would say it's not necessary, but it's not a bad option to have one of these.
Sure, yeah.
Because
and
it's
that's a
quick
lot
fix.
of things. A lot of things you'll see. It's like if it fits into like your sound, like if you're someone like a Billy Sheehan, where it's like you need to have a lot of different like effects to kind of like craft your sound.
Yep.
Then like it's going to be something that's necessary to give you the package that you want. For someone like us, where like sometimes it's just kind of plug and play. It's like, here, I brought my P bass and we just plug right in. It's not so necessary.
Absolutely. All right, guys. So that kind of concludes our episode 6 of Working Class Zeros. We want to thank our host, Bass Musician Magazine, once again for supporting us with our ongoing rants on being a working class bass player.
Absolutely.
Without Bass Musician, we would not be up to date with a lot of what's going on in the low end world. There's always updates about new products and new players. Definitely check out the current issues of Bass Musician Magazine, and we want to thank you once again for hanging out with us. I'm Steve.
And I'm Sean.
And this was Working Class Zeros, and we'll catch you hopefully on the next episode 7.
Yeah, that's right. It's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
It's going to happen, guys.
And we'll see you then. Thanks again.
Take care.
Bye.